Hello everyone and welcome back to Indy Beyond the Bricks after the first round of the 2024 IndyCar season, which saw Joseph Newgarden take an assured win around the streets of St. Petersburg. We are back here with James Scott as per usual. It'd be rude to do it with anyone else. How are you doing after the first round of the season, James?
I'm very much doing very well, thank you. I'm very happy to have IndyCar back on screen, and did a really great race in St. Pete. It wasn't quite as chaotic as 2023, but it was by no means unenjoyable. And as you say, Joseph Newgarden dominating to take the win. However, the word dominating can be used in a completely different context to Formula One, where Verstappen just drives off into the distance. Newgarden had to work incredibly hard for it, but his victory was, as you say, very assured. He led 92 of the 100 laps, but was under pressure consistently from O'Ward and Rosenqvist at the start of that race, and there's plenty for us to dive into. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Not looking forward to talking about it because it was great to watch.
Yeah. So if we start with the start of the race, we had a very, very clean start to the race in 2024, unlike 2023, which saw a pretty chaotic start. I think kind of undersells the start last season. But yeah, we had a four-wide moment into turn one. Which I think, as you said to me before, made you a little bit nervous.
It was Grosjean, VK, Ericsson, and McLaughlin. McLaughlin sent it from the inside of row 5, his starting spot, down the insiders. Grosjean braked incredibly early. He was on the inside of row 3 next to Marcus Ericsson. And so, the four of them went four wide into turn 1. And at that point, my heart rate shot through the roof. And I was just like, guys, please get through this safely. And then the only problem that we had really was Christian Lundgaard picking up a flat tyre from Alex Palou's front wing. But other than that, it was actually remarkably clean for St. Pete, which was good. And yeah, as you say, the track was littered with carbon fibre last year. Both AJ Foyt cars, both Meyershank Racing cars, and Devlin DiFrancesco in the air, thanks to that monumental shunt. So yeah, it was nice that we got through cleanly, and then we kind of settled down into sort of a fuel and tyre conservation race until Marcus Armstrong brought out the first caution of the day, Dylan.
Yeah, which kick-started a pretty mediocre day in general for Chip Ganassi Racing. But yeah, an unforced error from Marcus Armstrong, a very standard crash that we see around the streets of St. Petersburg. We had a very, very similar crash in the Indy NXT race prior. Surprising from Marcus Armstrong. I think we all expected him to have a pretty decent performance after qualifying the best out of all the Chip Ganassi Racing cars. But what do you make of it?
Well, Chip Ganassi were fighting a losing battle with turn 10, weren't they? Marcus Armstrong in the fence, Scott Dixon nearly hit the fence, and I think it was Hinchcliffe on commentary that said, he can take a little bit of heart knowing that Dixon nearly stacked it in the same place that he did. A 6-time champ and his very experienced teammate, but at the same time, very, very difficult for Chip Ganassi Racing. In the end, Linus Lundqvist ended up in that wall as well, and Alex Palou finished 6th. It was not quite what we expected the team that finished first and third here last year. Alex Palou was 2 positions better in 2024 than he was in 2023, and in 2023 he was perhaps the worst of the Chip Ganassi Racing cars. So that just kind of shows how, the phrase "how the mighty have fallen." It's far too early to judge anything about this IndyCar season at all, just because the USP of IndyCar is racing on all different types of tracks, and anyone can win at any time, just because one Team Penske might have dominated here in St. Pete, but Chip Ganassi Racing might be all over the Thermal Club when we go there in 10 days time. So really there's plenty to sort of there's you can't really take too much from it, but they weren't on their best, and as you say, it was a pretty mediocre weekend for Chip Ganassi Racing. On the other side of that fence then, their sparring partners for the championship ever since 2012 has been Team Penske. 1, 3, 4 for them. A Chevrolet 1, 2, 3, 4 with Pato O'Ward popping up on the second step of the podium. Ominous signs, you'd say, for the rest of the field, that domination by Team Penske.
Yeah, I think it was Joseph Newgarden who said we can turn right now, which is definitely a bit unnerving for the rest of the field, since Penske have had a pretty good oval package for the past few years. Obviously, we had Joseph Newgarden win the Indy 500 last year, and if they're going to be on top form around the road and street courses this season as well, we could be in for a pretty dominant display from Team Penske. But we did have Pato O'Ward sneak his way into P2, just to break up that that Penske kind of trio that could have all been on the podium if Pato O'Ward wasn't there. And obviously we did have Felix Rosenqvist, who had a pretty decent race in P2 for a pretty decent duration. So it's not all woes for Honda, but when it comes to longevity, the Chevrolet engine certainly looked to be the prime option.
Yeah, I mean, 3 Hondas, 3 Chevys in the Firestone Fast 6. So actually, the gap in that in kind of raw speed wasn't too different. I mean, the closest front row in St. Pete history ever since we've been here since 2003. So, there's plenty. So it's not like Chevy are running away with this. But yes, over that long stint, the Chevrolet was able to, I think, kind of save fuel a bit more superiorly. It just looked to be the better, racier engine. But I'm sure we've got plenty ahead of us. Who knows? Honda may have been working on their oval package for the engine, which Chevrolet have certainly been dominant on, and it might even out. 6 of the last 8 rounds are on ovals, and one man who'll be licking his lips for that, if he's anywhere near the championship picture, will be Joseph Newgarden. 92 laps led, pole position. First road and street course win since the Soncio Grand Prix of Road America back in June 2022. First street course win since the Acura Grand Prix of Long Beach back in April 2022. He looks like a man on a mission. He talked in the off-season about how he was taking away the distractions, just trying to, and I quote, get back to loving doing this. He looks refreshed. He looks revitalized. He's dropped a lot of the distractions, the extra media, the Bus Bros content, and he looks ferocious. A happy Newgarden is a fast Newgarden, and the field better take note because he's going to take some stopping.
Yeah, I think winning the Indy 500 last season was 100% a confidence boost for the Penske driver. And I mean, we saw over on numerous street courses recently, Newgarden hasn't been at his best. We'll have races where Will Power's in the top 5, kind of at least showing his nose to the podium, but Newgarden hasn't necessarily been around. But that certainly looks like it's about to change, because before today, I would have confidently said that Power and McLaughlin had superior pace around street circuits. But Newgarden seems to be trying to make a statement. So if he is still quick around the ovals, if he can show up to the road courses, we could be in. It could be hard to challenge Newgarden this season. I do agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, he really was on song in St. Pete, and there was no messing around with that. I actually thought that towards the end, I thought McLaughlin might carve his way through, but just could not get past O'Ward and was resigned to third. I actually had McLaughlin down to win before the season started, so I knew Team Penske were going to be strong, but I had Will Power on pole position as my prediction, and Scott McLaughlin to win, and in the end, Joseph Newgarden did both. So I knew the Team Penske bit, but of their drivers, what do I know? They had a good, very, very good weekend, did Newgarden and Penske. I guess the other big names that we talk about then, Andretti Autosport, Marcus Ericsson out with an engine failure. I was very sad. Colton Herta, a very reasonable performance. Going from 4th to 5th doesn't sound like much, but he was the best Honda and basically did the best with it that he could. The car was quick, but it wasn't razor-cuttingly quick, and Kyle Kirkwood was almost anonymous throughout the race. Another case of kind of same old, really, for Andretti Global, wouldn't you say, Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, they had a pretty decent display around St. Pete last season, obviously with McLaughlin choosing to put Grosjean in a barrier, kind of ruining their race last year, but they just didn't quite have that cutting edge, as you mentioned. Colton Herta managed to get onto the podium spaces into turn 1, passing Pato O'Ward, but apart from that, didn't really do anything else for the rest of the race. And I feel like on the safety car restarts, he was just a bit of a passenger to having cars go down his inside. So a shame for him, but as you said, I mean, he put up a decent performance, being the highest finishing Honda, especially in comparison to how Kyle Kirkwood performed, especially compared to last season. Kyle Kirkwood was way more on the pace last year around this track than he was this season. A pretty mediocre display from Andretti.
Yeah, I guess the improvement for Kirkwood this year is the fact that he didn't end up 6 feet in the air somersaulting over Jack Harvey. So, I think he tweeted sort of we had pace at all the wrong times, which, yeah, that's frustrating for him. But, he was in the Fast 6 last year as well here in St. Pete, but he didn't go flying. So, as they say, swings in roundabouts for Kyle Kirkwood. And, yeah, Colton Herta, it just kind of are caught on the wrong strategy, really. Him and Rosenqvist started on those alternate greens, and then that meant that for the first caution, they had to put the black tyres on, and that was a real struggle for them on that restart. Herta was being scythed through the pack by the chasing pack was scything past him, but yeah, a very, very reasonable job then. So we've had our underperformers in Chip Ganassi Racing, we've had our strong performers in Team Penske, and we've had a little bit of middling from I guess Aaron McLaren. Pato O'Ward needing to be in second. That's the best he could do, and did a very good job doing it. So who are our overachievers then? Really, I'm gonna put my neck on the line and say that I was most impressed by Felix Rosenqvist and Rinus VeeKay. Dylan, I'm sure you're in agreement.
Yeah, I was going to say Rosenqvist as well. I think it was good to see Meyershank performing well. I was a bit disappointed with Tom Blomqvist, especially compared to his teammates' performance, but obviously he didn't have nearly as much experience in the sport as Felix. There's a lot of Quists in the grid, you got the Lundqvist, you got too many. But yeah, no, I was very, very impressed with Felix Rosenqvist. He kept Newgarden relatively honest in the first stint, as we mentioned, managed to squeeze ahead in that pretty chaotic pit stop where somehow all cars made it through with no damage at all. So yeah, Felix Rosenqvist is my outlier. I think Santino Ferrucci did a pretty good job. Nothing crazy in P11, but not too bad for AJ Foyt, who normally trundle around the back of the field. So yeah, I'd say Felix Rosenqvist is my number one kind of top performer.
Well, yeah, Meyershank's best result since June 2022 when Simon Pagenaud finished 7th. I think it might have been Detroit, but you can't quote me on that. It was definitely in that mid-season run of Detroit, Road America, and Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course. It was one of those. But that was a 7th place finish. I remember seeing that yesterday. And then, so to finish 7th is a super result from Rosenqvist. And he was so close to the pole as well, just 0.0058. So, 5 thousandths of a second, 58 10,000 of a second is nothing. So shout out to Felix Rosenqvist. He did a really, really good job. And as you say, a little bit disappointing from Tom Blomqvist, but he'll get up to the speed with the open wheel cars. I've got no doubt. So that'll be good for him too. I mentioned Rinus VeeKay. Ed Carpenter really have struggled on street courses in recent times. They've often been strong at Indy. VeeKay's never qualified lower than 4th at the Indianapolis 500, and they're very good on road courses. I mean, VeeKay's last pole position was at the 2022. I can't remember what the official name was, but it was the race at Barber. He ended up finishing 2nd there, and he won on the Indy road course in 2021. So that's where their strengths are at. So to kind of do reasonably well and finish in 10th after qualifying just outside the Fast 6, I think they can take a lot of pride from that, and hopefully that bodes well for the new season. And then I think the last one I want to give a good shout out to was I'll give 2. I'll let you talk about the second one, but first one was Kyffin Simpson. We have different expectations for Kyffin Simpson for 2024. I think lots of people were hesitant for him to be getting that Chip Ganassi Racing drive. I mean, being chucked in the deep end of arguably the biggest team, one of the teams with the largest budget, and going up against a 6-time champ, a 2-time champ, the Rookie of the Year, and the winner of Indy Next in 2022, and a very highly rated rookie in Linus Lundqvist. It could be very, very suffocating for Kyffin Simpson, but he kept his nose clean, kept out the barriers, and finished 14th, which doesn't sound like much, but to do all 100 laps, run them in reasonable pace, doing a reasonably good job, I think that's very good. Dylan, do you want to talk about Romain Grosjean? Qualified in 5th, then caught up in a clumsy incident with Linus Lundqvist. For Ljungqvist, they've got to make those good starting positions count if they can.
Yeah, definitely. You're giving this to me just because I'm wearing the hat from the FMS store, aren't you? So, yeah. But I was really impressed with Grosjean's qualifying. I think making it into the Firestone Fast 6 in a Juncos is no mean feat. I think Eilert did it twice. Eilert was in the Firestone Fast 6 at Barber Motorsports Park, and then he got that P2 at Laguna Seca in 2022. But yeah, great qualifying performance for Grosjean. Really hesitant into turn one. So you start to think, was Grosjean calming down a little bit? Was he kind of taking the races a bit slower just to kind of, minimize damage? But then we got to later on in the race when he was behind Linus Lundqvist, and a bit of a messy accident. He stuck his nose in where he really shouldn't have, and obviously it put the Chip Ganassi racing car into the barrier. So yeah, pretty rough race in general for Grosjean. He started off pretty well, decent qualifying, but yeah, hopefully not a sign of things to come for Grosjean. Let's hope he can bounce back at the next race, which is obviously the thermal $1 million challenge. So yeah.
Yeah, the Juncos now they've got this technical alliance with McLaren, and now they've got sort of a top fast racing driver. They have to go forward, and now Canapino's no longer a rookie as well. They have to show some signs of improvement. Maybe it doesn't come immediately on street courses, but just that consistency of consistently building towards the front has to come now for Juncos Hollinger Racing, which I think I'm optimistic in the fact that it will. But yeah, they've got to be turning points into prizes, and I know Grosjean eventually retired with a gearbox issue, but that probably will have come from the significant whack that the car took, taking Linus Lundqvist out and becoming he was the second Chip Ganassi racing car to be swallowed up by the turn 10 fence. One team who was pretty anonymous all weekend, and kind of summed up their 2023 as well, despite that one win that Lundgaard took in Toronto, was Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing. That's not quite the start they'd envisaged after repairing the low-hanging fruit that they talked about, which saw them do terribly at Indy last year. But I know the oval and the street course is completely different, but starting as you mean to go on is key, and that didn't happen for them in 2024, did it?
No, absolutely not. I mean, Lundgaard became a moving chicane on lap one through no fault of his own, really. I was surprised it wasn't investigated at all, I don't think, the contact between him and Alex Palou. But I suppose it's just lap one things, you got a full grid of cars all trying to squeeze around the streets of St. Petersburg in a massive group. So, not a good start for Rahal Letterman Lanigan at all. And I think, as I mentioned to you before, it's just you forget that they're there a lot of the time. And I feel like if they keep going down this trajectory, they might become what Juncos and AJ Foyt were in the past few seasons, which is certainly not where they want to be. But you can never write out a quick driver like Lundgaard. He had a fantastic Formula 2 career, great results in that ART, push for championships, and he's shown pace before, especially around tracks like the Indy GP. I think it was last year that Rahal got, had a fair few decent performances around road courses, so it's difficult to write them off after one poor street race, but if this is a sign of things to come, it could be a long season for Rahal Letterman Lanigan.
Yeah, well, Rahal had 2 poles in one at the Indy road course and one at Portland. However, the other thing was that they were bumped from the Indy 500. They had 3 of their 4 cars in last chance qualifying, and Catherine Legg only scraped through in 30th. So they really struggled. They've got some work to do for 2024. But it's all to play for, and I think a big caveat for this podcast has got to be that this is IndyCar and anything can happen on any track. So Rahal may struggle on street courses in 24, but they might have nailed their oval package. And with 6 of the last 8 rounds being ovals, we won't be talking about their fruitless St. Pete, because Christian Lundgaard finished 8th in the standings last year, despite the fact they were pretty poor in the early part of the season. So there's plenty still to come. We've got 16 more points-paying races, 17 more races to go. So yeah, as you say, anything can happen. Any more thoughts, Dylan?
I'm just really excited for the remainder of the season. I feel like, as we mentioned, Penske could be pretty difficult to knock off their perch, but it's certainly not impossible. I think we're going to see some kind of some brilliant Pato Award performances this year. This is a big year for Pato. He's got to kind of iron out some of those mistakes that he made in the past few years, especially like the ones he made at the Indy 500 last year. You know, he had so much pace around Texas, still somehow didn't win. And we're gonna have to see a revitalized Pato Award if he wants to win the championship this season, especially since he's up against those Penskes who are bound to be quick around ovals. They are now showing that they can be quick around street courses, and I wouldn't write them out for road courses either. So it's going to be an uphill climb for Pato Ward if he wants to win the championship. But I can see a Ward Penske, and it would be stupid to write out Alex Palou as a championship contender. So I reckon it'll be a Ward, Palou, and the Penske's kind of going at it for the rest of the season. But obviously this is IndyCar. There'll be one-off races where you'll get random winners. You know, you'll have the championship favourites completely knocked out with a technical problem or a crash. So yeah, super excited to see where the rest of the season goes, James.
Dylan, you haven't just forgotten Scott Dixon as part of your championship mix, have you? That's just a little bit of a brain fade, but yeah, and a 6-time champ for Chip Ganassi Racing, and not having him part of your championship picture. There's a braver man than me to say that. I'll leave you with that.
Or an idiot.
I'm sure. Yeah, it was perhaps just a brain fade because yeah, you know it'd be silly to count out Dixon, but yeah, there's no point counting out Chip Ganassi yet. A team with a defending champ, a 6-time champ, and some very highly rated drivers. There's so much this season to come, and yeah, as you said, I'm very much looking forward to the rest of it, and just hoping that Marcus Ericsson can see the checkered flag, not even in first, just see the checkered flag. That'd be a good start at some stage. But yeah, I think we've covered Firestone Grand Prix of St. Pete.
Yeah. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed the race. Remember to check out the FMS store. This is where I got this really nice Hunkos Hollinger racing hat and this lovely Pato Award Triple Crown t-shirt. I'll try and show you the back. I got the award on the back. So yeah, go check that out. You can use code Dylan5 at checkout for exclusive discounts and offers. And do you have anything to add, James?
Well, I'm hoping they can see the diecast in the background. My camera's been kind of hit and miss today, so who knows? There's an Ericsson, Dixon, and a Pato Award diecast, along with loads of others. I'm so waiting for when the Andretti Marcus Ericsson comes out after buy the shirt and I use the buy the diecast as well, because yeah, that'd be very, very cool. But there's so much great stuff on the FMS store as well, and as Dylan said, you can use his code at checkout for lots of cool different things. And you mentioned YouTube, but if you're listening on Spotify, don't forget to give us a review if you have enjoyed it, and we also try and build on there. But yeah, I think that's everything covered this week.
Okay, sweet. Well, if you did enjoy this video and you haven't subscribed, please make sure to do so for more IndyCar content, because we're not going to be slacking. I've been pretty ill for the past couple weeks, so I do apologize for the lack of content there. But if you have made it this far, I do really appreciate that, and I will see you all in the next video. But until then, guys, take care, and thank you very much for watching.